Welcome to Mick and the Psychic, where we leave no stone unturned as we explore all things outside the apparent physical realm.
There is no intent to teach or make you believe or disbelieve anything. It is just a safe space to listen and explore with us.
So for this next episode, you have permission to open your heart and mind as you join myself and Xavier on this deep dive into the unknown.
End of it, having my conversation with her, me and her, and sitting up here, and all of a sudden I just got pulled to the side, and what I realized was that she was giving me that vision, her last moment, her last period of being alive.
Very special guest, Karen Romine. Karen is a certified psychic, medium, and psychic investigator with the Lisa Williams International School of Spiritual Development. Ooh, that sounds cool. She works with 2 nonprofits in the US that assist law enforcement in finding missing people. Karen also does individual, small and large group readings, birth order readings, which is interesting. I have no idea what that is. Essential oil consults, because why not? And intuitive healings as well. Her mission is to work with spirit as a compassionate and intuitive channel for therapeutic energy. And she's compassionately and intuitively here for us today on the show. Welcome, Karen.
Woo. Thank you. Thank you for having me. That was nice. I don't know if I can live up to that.
Well, half of it came from your website. The other half came from you. So, I mean, I'm not the psychic in this three-way conversation. Okay. So, It's so good to have you. We were talking earlier about how you've just recently been in Melbourne, and I had one of those idiotic moments where I'm like, in Melbourne, she's come down here for Melbourne. That's amazing. But of course, there's more than one Melbourne in the world.
Disappointing.
Another Melbourne, one much closer to me.
And how did that go, by the way?
It went fantastic, actually. It was a big event and a lot of psychics and mediums. And so it was a lot of fun.
And so was that one of those things where you do, you have stalls and you do readings, or were you doing a presentation in this?
Platform
or
event.
what was that? Yeah.
It was actually, you mentioned Lisa Williams, the school that I have done my certifications through. She did a large event there, and we went and actually, a lot of it was trance work. And then it was also working, I'm in the middle right now of getting my certification as a teacher in this space. Mm-hmm. And so we went to go to work as teachers at her event to work with students. So it was sort of a hands-on thing too.
Oh, fun.
How lucky for those people. That's so cool.
I love it.
Yeah, that'd be fun. And trance work. Okay. So have you done much work with trance before?
Well, certainly not before I got in this space. Yeah. I would have been scared to death, I think, just the concept of it, right? So I would say over the past couple of years, though, I have done quite a bit of trance work, and I love it because I really think that it enhances the mediumship work and the psychic work. So it's, I'm a big meditator. I have been for years, and it sort of folds right in with that when it puts me into that space. So it's a natural home for me to do trance work.
Beautiful.
I love that. That's
I'd love to know, it's an obvious question, but I'd love to get into I'd love to know a bit of your backstory. Like, how did you get into this area of expertise and work in the first place? Is it something, because some people are, everyone is trying to say they're born with it. I get the Maybelline ad in my head.
Yeah, maybe she's born with it. Maybe
she's born with it. Yeah. So is it something you've been doing since you were young? For myself, I learned later in life in my 30s, and then realized I'd been doing some of these things all my life. And then I did courses and practiced and harnessed all my skills. So were you like that, or did you always have some kind of gift or knowing, and then it turned into something later? What's the story?
I had the ability when I was young. Mm-hmm. I thought everyone had the ability, and I opened my mouth a few too many times and realized from the adults around me that it really wasn't something that was looked highly upon. So I was told basically, let's wrap that up. We don't want to hear that stuff. And so that's what I did. And I really went through this really crazy transition of, medical issues and migraines and sleep terrors and all these crazy things. And I realize now, looking back at it, it was from shutting everything down. And there was a war about me that I didn't realize. So a long gap condensed. I went about my schooling, went to college, and got into corporate America. And somebody walked in the office one day and said, "Hey, we're going to go see a medium this weekend. Do you want to go?" And I was like, "Well, I mean, can we go see a great? Like, what's a medium?" and they said, "Hey, we're going to go talk to this lady, and she's going to like talk to your dead people and answer all your big life questions." And I was like, there's a job for that. That was definitely not on my college curriculum.
I love that.
So I went, I will never forget it. I'm a complete skeptic, right? So this is before cell phones and everything, before the internet. Parked around the corner. I only gave her my first name when I made my appointment. I was going to pay her in cash when I got there. And she was this lady. I was in Houston, Texas. And so everybody's, a cowboy there. And this lady has this thick English accent and this flowing red hair and this purple velvet cloth over this table with this crystal ball. And I was like, "Oh, I want to be you when I grow up." That was all I could think. So she gave me this message, and I couldn't connect to it. She gave me a message with a man that I was pretty sure I knew. I was just positive it was my grandfather, but I couldn't connect to the message. And so I left there thinking, I wonder what's up with that. But the message was for my mom. So I went home, called, and my mom was like, "How do you know that?"
Wow.
So then I knew that then everything shifted for me. So then I safely got into Reiki and, energy healing, and just kind of took the easy route through there. I was afraid to tell people. So it wasn't until my dad passed, which was in March of 2017. And I'm running a tech company in Los Angeles, and I'm at home alone working on an Excel spreadsheet in my typical space. And I heard a voice say, "Karen." And it was the first time I'd ever heard an external voice come in.
Yeah.
Wow.
And I knew that voice was something from a divine space. And I knew it was love. There was not a fear. I never crossed my mind somebody broke into the house. I just knew it when I heard my voice. So I looked around, I waited a second, and again I heard, "Karen." And I said, "Yes." And the voice said, "Your father's going to pass tonight."
Wow.
And I knew it to be true in that moment. There was no hesitation. There was no thinking things through. I just knew it to be true. So I called. I had a lovely conversation with my dad. I was able to say anything and everything that might have ever crossed my mind, right? It encouraged a conversation back from him. I was able to call my brother and say, "Get over there really fast," because I can't get there. I'm thousands of miles away, and I'll be there in the morning. It was a great situation. So my husband probably thought I was kind of nuts, because he came home and I said, "Pack your bag and pack a suit, and call work and tell them that you won't be in for a few days. He's like, well, where are we going? I said, we're going to go home for my dad's funeral. And my husband was like, oh, you've lost your mind. I said, just trust me and pack. So about probably 3-ish in the morning, a presence came and woke me up. And I knew without a doubt that it was my dad. It was just so clear to me. So, and he went to the other side, and my brother called me at 5 and he said, you're never going to believe this. I said, yes, I will. He's no, I don't think so. I said, yes, I do know. And the shorter side of that is just that it made such a difference in the way that I processed the grief with my dad, that I thought, if that could change my life like that, I owe it to be able to go out to help other people to get these messages and to be able to have these experiences. So I called my business partner probably 2 months later. I called him up and I said, hey, I'm checking out. I'm not going to do this anymore. He's like, well, what are you going to do? I said, I'm going to go talk to dead people. He's like, wow, that is great. And I've never looked back.
Holy moly, what a story. I'm feeling all the emotions.
How incredible.
It was a beautiful situation for me. Honestly, it's hard to explain, especially when you talk about, I miss the heck out of my dad. And I mean, I can't begin to tell you. And I was completely daddy's girl. So it would make sense that I would get that information too, right? So, and I also think that it was just a sign from the other side saying this, like we've been trying to get your attention. We think this might be a really big one. We think we'll get your attention here. And it worked. It worked.
And timing is everything. And it's, people talk about divine timing.
Yeah.
I don't know about that, but I think there is something about the catalyst of time for someone to step into the next part of their life. And it's an opportunity. It's not a given. It's an opportunity to do that. And the fact that you're open to accept that voice and answer, probably a really big point was you answering where it said Karen, and you actually answered and said yes. That yes bit might have been the turning point of taking that opportunity. It was a really big shift. I mean, I was 57. I was 57 when that happened. So instead of like retiring and just like sitting back, no, I've ramped way up. I'm a whole different bird now, and it's a whole different space for me. Yeah. So it's been, I think, absolutely saying yes. This is what I tell brand new beginners now when they come to me and they're like, how do you connect? How do you get that? So once I found my guide, do you edit? I'll tell you a funny story. Please. Funny story. Once I found my guide, my spirit guide, I'm very literal and very much a skeptic. And so I need a name. And like, I need it to be like Bob. Like I needed to. My spirit guide, Bob. That's a book, by the way. That's your next book. Okay. My spirit guide, Bob. Yeah. So I'm meditating. I'm just getting into the space. I'm like, tell me who you are. Nothing, crickets. So one day after I've done all this meditating, I'm eating dinner with my husband. And I felt this hand come across the back of my head. And I knew that to be my guide. I was like, oh, quiet, don't talk to me. I put my silverware down. I closed my eyes and I'm like, I know it's you. Tell me your name. Oh, your husband. Your husband. My husband. What in the hell? Who died? Do I need my suit? This is interesting.
So I said, okay, I'm going to do the letters. Now, mind you, I want like Bob. So I'm waiting to get some, streak of whatever, A, B, C, D, E, F, S, T. I'm like, oh my God, your name's going to start with an X. Sorry, I had to use that. It'll be a name that I don't know. Yeah. So I wait and I say V, and then I know it's a V. I said, your name, I'm like Victoria. I'm going through all these names. I said Vivian, and I could just feel energy running through me. So I said, okay, your name is Vivian. So now I need to know, I need a sign now. That's not good enough. I need a sign. Yeah. So we finished dinner, and my husband turns on the TV, and Pretty Woman is on there, and Richard Gere is at the bottom of the stairwell yelling, Vivian, Vivian. I'm like,
and I was seeing as soon as you said it.
Wow.
So now back to where I was going is whenever I'm talking to newbies, new beginners in the space, I say you have to develop a relationship. If you don't know their name, just give them a name. They'll eventually tell you what their name is. But I started just by saying thank you. I'd say, come help me find my car keys. I'd find my car keys. I'd say, thank you. I'm constantly coming back. Thank you. And starting that dialogue. So yes, I think you're absolutely right, Mick, when you said that, me saying yes, when I heard my name, it opened the dialogue.
Beautiful. Yeah, because you're acknowledging and trusting and showing that you trust and that you're open.
Yeah.
And I'm loving the examples you're giving already of how you get your messages, because for new people channeling and learning to do all this, they always wonder if they're doing it right, or if that sign, like, you asked for an obvious sign and you got one to confirm the name, Vivian. Like, that's how it works. There's so many people who go, yeah, but was that the sign, or was it just a coincidence? And you're like, seriously, they're probably going, the guys are probably going, really? How, like, stop.
Exactly right.
It's really good. But you're trusting, which is fantastic. And I love, that you started older, because so many people think like you should be practicing since you're really young, and they love to say, I've been doing this for people for 40 years, and it makes them sound more experienced, but you get what you're ready for. So in the short time you've been doing this, you've probably learned way more than somebody who might have been doing it since I was 6, which is true, because that's the same for me since I've learned. Like, you just get inundated with the abilities. The more you practice and the more you put into it, I think, or the more you want it, or the more you want to help people.
Don't you feel too like life's experiences help to mold you better into this space? I wouldn't even know half the stuff I'm looking at on the other side if I hadn't have lived through some stuff.
Right. And because they give you examples, I don't know if because I get messages like, they'll show me an example of something that's happened in my life so I can relate to what I'm getting from my clients. So they'll give me an example of a person I know, or a conversation, or a situation. But yeah, if I didn't have all that life experience, it wouldn't be as easy for me to confirm what I'm getting, I guess. Is it similar for you?
Yes, definitely. Cool. Definitely.
Oh. Sorry.
No, this is great. You brought up trust and the like, often when it's coming from, I guess you said the other side, wherever, there's a subtlety behind it, unless it's Karen. But there's a subtlety to a lot of these messages and these signs that are coming through, and skeptics would say, and skeptics being us as well, look at that sort of, us as skeptics, look at that, and it does make you question, is trust a really important part of being here on this earth as a 3-dimensional being connecting with spirit? Like, is it that we have to be really, really here, and the message from spirit be subtle for some reason, do you think? Or what's the reason why there's that subtlety to a lot of the messages?
So I am a control freak. I like a game plan. I want to know what's going to happen, why it's going to happen, and how it's going to happen. So in this space, if you don't trust, I have no control. I'm going to do a reading for someone who's going to pay me or trust me with helping to find their child or whatever the circumstances are. And I cannot prepare.
Yeah.
What a test every time.
And you can't do it yourself either, right? You'd be guessing.
Even when it's happening, it has nothing to do with me. It comes in and goes out.
Mm.
It's a huge, it's a huge trust.
Mm.
I ask every time before I do a reading under any circumstances for anything, that it's always in the highest and best good, and that you get what it is that you need. And then you have to trust that that's what's going to happen. So like there's this whole psychic amnesia thing, particularly in that mediumship space, where I had a reading not that long ago. I had this guy come in, great big guy, not my typical client. He's like, okay, I'm ready. I said, all right. So I bring in a spirit who comes in, and he's like, I'm your brother in arms, but there's no military connection. Like maybe like in a fraternity kind of situation, but he's referring to brothers in arms, and he's not in the military, but he is wearing a uniform, and he is responsible for, he's thanking you. The next thing came through was he's thanking you for a plaque, for a memorial that was done for him. And the guy's like, no. I said, he says he's like your brother. That's how close of friends he is with you. No.
So funny.
Now, generally, I would say, okay, you gate crasher, I don't know who you're here for, that, it's like your neighbor's brother's sister or something. They're trying to get a message, but I know this guy is trying to get him a message. No. Well, a condensed story is he was waiting to hear from his grandfather, who did come through, but he was so focused on that, focused on talking to his grandfather, that his friend who had taken his life just a few weeks prior, he couldn't connect to him. Once he put the pieces together and the color, kind of goes, and you're like, oh, I know who that is. Then he can receive the message. But that's a perfect example. His highest and best good was hearing from his grandfather. That's why he had shown up. He's ready. Bring me my grandfather. I'm going to relive learning how to drive and fishing and all these great childhood memories. But my message is make this clear and concise for him and do it for his highest good and bring him what it is that he needs. So the first thing that comes through is this other spirit. So I have no control. It was for his highest good. In the long run, I know this guy now. I know the spirit's family now. I know the connections and everything, right? But it was what he needed. It was for his highest and best good. So it's a lot of trust and faith that the message it's going to come through too, that I have the ability to say it in a way.
Yeah. And the courage as well to present what you're being presented to, because they can't see that. Or when I say see, experience.
Right.
So, you have to have the courage to present what's in front of you, whether it's what they ask for or not. You have to trust that. And then I guess interpret for them.
Yep.
Yeah.
And interpreting, that's a whole nother thing, is interpreting, right? No. And when I'm doing a reading, everybody's always laughing because I tend to be a little conservative on my own emotions. I'm not super expressive of them. And so when I get a really emotional spirit from the other side, if their heart's racing, I'm like, okay, did you die from a heart attack? No. Are you super stressed? No, but you could be. Are you really excited? Oh, no, but you could be. I mean, think how many things make you feel like you could be stressed or excited or having a heart attack or whatever.
Yeah.
So I'm always saying, use words, use words, use
Yeah.
words, because it's not for me to interpret either.
Yeah. Because again, that's trust in yourself, and you want to trust, not coming from yourself. You want to be, I guess, the clear vessel.
Do you think it's like their skill level as well as like what they've learned on the other side of how they present their messages to you? Like, if they've been passed over longer from this body, are they learn tricks, or if they are more expressive in real life, would they be better at saying the words, for example?
I do think that if you have somebody who's really emotional in life, that they come across still as very emotional from the other side. And I also think that how they use their words, I say really weird words in a reading that like I would never normally use in a sentence. And so I'm sure that that's coming from the other side. And I also feel like when that happens, that for me, I used to always think, oh, you've got to be over there a long time to know the whole system and come through clearly. But man, they can come through as clear as day and be gone for a week.
Yeah.
Okay.
So yeah, that's cool. Yeah.
Have you had psychics come through? Like, is a dead psychic a good spirit guide? I don't know. This is your second book, by the way.
That's good. We are recording this, right?
Yeah. You're right. You can have that one for free as well. Like, would a dead psychic be a good, I guess, communicator on the other side, or do you have no idea?
I have had one experience.
Okay.
Cool.
And I was very confused in the beginning of the reading because, just like you mentioned earlier, like we see our life's events to associate things to get us to a point in their story if they're having problems communicating it. Well, I kept seeing me.
To give you an example of a psychic.
To the point where I thought, are they trying to tell me I'm going to die? Like, is this a sign?
They're messing with you. I love it. I love it. They're messing with you.
And so I finally, sometimes I'll just say to whoever I'm reading for, and that happened in this situation, I said, I am really confused. I have this lady here to go through some description. I said, I'm going to dig in more about her, but she keeps showing me. And the person on the other side, she started laughing. She said, I know why that is. I said, okay. So then everything she said was like in a riddle. And I said, I'm done with her. I don't want to talk to her anymore. So was she good? At the beginning, she was miserable. I was miserable with her. Everything was a game. Everything was a prank on words.
Testing you.
I didn't understand it. And the person who was getting the readings just laughing the whole time. And finally, I said, aha. I understand. And so from there, then the rest of the reading went much smoother. And once I got caught onto her, because I'm trying not to think about it, it's not mine to think about, but she got me in my head and had me trying to analyze everything. And finally it was like, oh, now I got it. So was she fun? She was a lot of fun. Apparently she was the tea leaf reader in the cups.
Yeah, great.
Was how she started. And then it just kept growing from there. And people would just come and line up outside of her house, just waiting. And
might have just been good tea.
Yeah.
Maybe she should have opened a tea shop. Would have been a bit more profitable.
Could have been a lot more profitable. So considering she was reading for all of her little lady neighbors and everything, it was a lot of fun. I enjoyed it, but she's my one and only experience of bringing through someone that's been in the same space.
That's cool.
Yeah.
She was cheeky testing you. It seemed like she was helping you get out, like getting in your head. So she's trying to show you to get out of it. Like, I love that.
Yes. I think you're right.
I reckon she's just messing with you. I just think if I was on the other side, I would be screwing with Xavier so badly.
Yeah, you'd be driving me nuts.
Giving all sorts of convoluted messages.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Messing up her Zoom calls. That's the big one. So
Yes.
I think, I think when psychics cross over, they can have a bit more fun.
Right.
I think so. I think I'm going to be a terror from the other side.
Yeah, for sure. I've been wanting to mix with people. But I think it's the same. If like, I reckon you asked that question, Mick, because I know when, like, because Mick's a hypnotherapist. And so when he's put me under, before I put myself under, he's guiding me, whatever, it seems like quite easy because it's, you know, you meditate a lot too. So going into like, and trance, like going into that space, it's like, did he even have to do anything? We just go there. So yeah, because maybe you're sort of thinking like along those lines, do they connect better because it's got like a more natural zone to be in?
Yeah, it might very well be. I have a funny story about hypnotherapy stuff. I went.
It's okay, I can edit this out. Go for it. I'll put a deep fake and just have Karen just saying, I think hypnotherapy is exactly the way to go. And who else to go to but Michael Hearn at hearnhypnosis.com. Yeah, great. Right. I'll just swap heads. It'll be fun.
Thank you.
Now go with your story. This is great.
In my very analytical brain, I wanted to know what my past lives were. I needed to know who I was, what I did. I needed to know the whole 9 yards. So I go. They're like, okay, you know, we're going to take you to that space right before you go to sleep. And then you bring your list of questions and I'm going to ask your persons in your prior lives these questions and we're going to find out this information. I said, I really just want to know one thing. I have a crazy, crazy fear of heights. And I want to know why. I'm sure it's for a reason. So I go and she puts me right in that beautiful spot. And I started talking, and I know you'll find this hard to believe, but I talked for 2.5 hours.
Really?
Sounds like a QHHT session, actually.
No, the reverse, because Karen's doing the talking. It's great.
She asked like 5 questions at the end of it. She's like, look, before you come out, we just need to know, why is Karen afraid of heights? And they're like,
you didn't even get to it.
Yeah. And they're like, oh, that's so unimportant.
Oh, no.
So here I am after my one hypnotherapy appointment. I need to come to Melbourne, Michael.
It happens over Zoom. It's fine. Yeah, no worries. We could do it over Zoom. Yeah, 100%. I work with people in the States and UK and Canada. Yeah, no worries.
Yeah,
I just saw what the past life was, Mick. So, but I'm not going to tell you though. So if she has a session with you, you can
do it now. Let's do it now. Go, and then do me. Come on, I love it. I like to every now and again we just switch Xavier on, and then she has to go in psychic mode.
I can do a quick version for you, Karen, because I don't want to hijack your interview. But I can. Would you like me to heal and clear it for you?
I'd love it.
I'd love it if she said no. I love it if she just goes, actually no. I don't believe in that stuff.
Okay. But I do a quick version. It's not hypnotherapy. So this is my thing in being psychic, that I do past lives and heal and clear them. But as soon as you said it, I saw an image of what happened really quickly. But I just need to heal and clear it for you to not be afraid of heights anymore. So if you'd like to not be so scared.
I'm ready.
Oh, cool. Okay. I'm not going into it the traditional way because they did just show me a scene of it. Usually I would start on a rainbow and go into the life and everything. But as soon as you mentioned that you were scared of heights, I did a jump. So play back, you'll see me quick. I just saw you soaring through the sky as an eagle, and then you actually got shot, big shotgun, shot out of the sky.
That's a bird one.
A bird one, yeah. But I thought,
cool.
But I'm like, straight away, because we start questioning, I'm like, why would you be scared of heights? Because you're a bird. But it's the way, what you were thinking as you were falling down, about like thinking about falling from a great, like to your death, even though you weren't happy with that. It's like, you were like, that's not how I wanted to go. So it was like a disappointment as a bird, just enjoying life and being so happy up there, and then it just got taken away from you so fast. Not impressed. So
And this would also explain, and I can't do it because I'm not going to screen share and completely hijack this whole thing.
This is great.
But
No,
I am,
no hijack.
I am completely fascinated with eagles. I just took a video of two of them way up in the sky, just making their sound. You can hardly even see them, and they're just out there. That makes so much sense.
Yeah. So
how can you not love these? These conversations are the best.
Exactly. But I can't just leave it out there for you. So I want to heal and clear it, if that's all right. So it'll just take me 2 seconds and I'll do that for you. So get all goosebumps. So, all right. So we don't really need to know all the details, like irrelevant, I think, otherwise it would have shown me more. But we just want to heal and clear any negative feelings, fears, anything we don't like from that life, anything that's holding you back in this life, we're going to heal it from that life. So you can move forward, feeling safe, not being afraid of anything that's not necessary in this life and in future lives. So thank you. It's done. And while we're here, we're going to bring in any skills, information, anything helpful and positive from that life to do with the eagles or the experience. We're going to bring that into your subconscious mind for you to use anytime you want to tap into it in this life and in your future lives. Thank you so much. Beautiful. And I'm just going to like wrap you up in a cocoon just in case there's anything we missed. So you're all shiny and grounded and back to yourself again. Done.
Ooh.
That's a very quick version of a past life.
That's fabulous. Thank you.
Good. Well, I'm looking forward to hearing about you next time you're standing up on something high and
now you can fly to Melbourne. Our Melbourne.
Yeah.
Get on a plane.
Definitely.
I love that. I was so glad to be able to do that for you.
Thank you.
Having a podcast with two psychics on is so much fun. And it's really interesting. I felt, and I wonder if some listeners felt it as well, even during that. And I love that it's not like an old lady with long nails over a thing putting on a voice, but just in what you were saying, Xavier, like I felt like an energy as well. So it's like, wow.
I just heard a really loud plane fly over, a helicopter, sorry. It was really loud just then. So that's a confirmation for you, which I love that.
It's amazing. I love that.
The timing. Doesn't happen very here. So I was like, really now? Yeah.
Yeah.
Great.
That is good. And hopefully that helps anyone else with a fear of height. Probably doesn't, because you didn't have the same past life. So,
I don't know. I love that actually, Mick. Maybe anyone else like it could have
some
helped.
of the healing energy, maybe. I don't know.
Yeah.
Now I'm talking out my ass. I have no idea. Speaking of no idea, one of the reasons why we have you on the show.
Oh yes, please
talk about leap of faith. You jumping in and working with some of these not-for-profits in finding missing persons. I mean, you're dealing with people at their most vulnerable. So this is probably one of the hardest things that you can do. Talk about the whole trust thing. You know, you don't want to do any more harm to people. So when this sort of stuff comes up and you can actually help, you're putting a lot of trust in what you're connecting to. What got you attracted to doing this? Because I feel like this is probably one of the toughest things you can do in this kind of realm.
So I am a true crime junkie. I love it. And if I can't find true crime, I'm reading, fiction crime. I've been fascinated with it since, I don't know, since I was young. And so when the opportunity came up to get certified as a psychic investigator, I thought, oh, this is my calling. This is exactly what I'm supposed to be doing. So I took the year-long course, and I don't do anything halfway. So I was all in. And I realized at the end of it that it's kind of like working for divorce lawyers. Like nobody's happy at the end.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So even if you win, you still aren't happy. And I thought,
yeah, but they didn't show up happy and end up unhappy. To be fair to divorce lawyers, they show up unhappy and stressed out, and they leave unhappy but no longer stressed because it's all sorted. So,
true.
There's limits.
True. So I thought this just isn't for me. I don't want to do it. So we moved across the country, And we were unpacking in our house, and the neighbor lady came over and introduced herself. And because of a bunch of things that had happened and she was getting ready to have her background checked, she needed to tell us that someone may knock on our door, and that she was actually with the FBI and she worked on cold cases. And my husband kind of looked at, now my husband thinks I'm a little bit more normal, not super normal, but a little bit more normal.
Well, he's always got a suit packed.
So I thought, that's interesting, but nope, I'm not gonna do it. So another 2 weeks go by, and out of the other house, like next door to the FBI lady, these two little girls come bounding out of the house one day, and we have this big funny conversation. And it turns out that he's also in the same general space. And I thought, nope, I'm not going to do it.
Universe is going to slap you across the side of the head. I'm waiting for it.
So a friend of mine that had done the certification course with me called me up, and she said, hey, can you help us? Somebody else came to her with a case. They had decided that was the initial psychic medium was very close friends with the mother of the missing son. She connected with this mutual friend of mine, and they were both convinced that this young missing man was deceased. I didn't know that. They said, can you please see what you get? I said, just send me the picture, very begrudgingly. Send me the picture, I'll see what I can do. So I connected to him right away, and I knew he was alive. I knew what his circumstances were. I knew what the story was. Wow. I knew everything. So I call her up and I said, yes, I'll do this one with you. So we get on, the three of us, and I said, I know without a doubt, I do everything on stickies because you don't create a story. Everything's just a nugget. Like if you get a man's name, let's say you get the name William, you don't say a man's name William. It's just William. So I have all these stickies, and so I start picking them up. I think he's alive. I think this. I think, this. And they're like, no, I think he's dead. I said, really? I said, you got to be kidding me. I said, what's his name? They said, Harry. I said, well, why do you think Harry's dead? Said, well, but one of them connected to the grandmother and one of them connected to the grandfather. And they both said on the other side that Harry was there. So I say, okay, give me the picture of the grand spirit comes in on this side. That's why I'm turning this way. Sorry. And so I say, so I tune into the grandmother on the other side. I say, Grandma, if you've got Harry, like, bring him out right now, roll him out here on the carpet. And a man comes in and holds her hand. And I said, is the grandfather's name Harry? And they both said, yes. I said, that's your Harry that's on the other side.
Wrong Harry. Oh my goodness.
Oh, wrong Harry.
Wrong Harry. And so from there, we took all of their golden nuggets. And then it made total sense to them because their information was so conflicting with what they were getting. Because they'd also been getting that he was deceased, and they both got that Harry was on the other side. Indeed, he was. So a long story now, longer in true Karen fashion. We go through this whole thing. We get all of this information, and we sent it off to the sheriff's department, and it all came together beautifully. And I knew Harry was going to come back in 3 days. I say, he's coming back in 3 days. We can send this to the sheriff. We can do whatever. He's intentionally laying low, and gave them information that they weren't aware of that then made more sense to the family and to the sheriffs, and they were able to confirm all that. And so then here comes Harry on the third day. So
how long was he away from?
He was gone from the 30th to the 7th.
Okay.
So 7 days.
Yeah.
So so it worked out great, and it was a happy ending. So it was a happy ending, and I was like, oh,
needed that.
I kind of don't mind this work after all. And what I wanted was a way to be able to give back. I wanted to be able to help in a way that was unique, that I could help. And I wanted to be able to serve people in that capacity, which is really why I probably got into this space in the first place. So I end up on a different podcast that happens to be about murders, and this whole connection falls into place. She's a board member on one of these nonprofits, and I end up getting connected in with them. And you go through it's a big testing. It's a lot of, they have you do past cases, current cases, their background checking, because you don't, any Tom, Dick, and Harry, and I hate to say it that way, right? But there's also a lot of people that are maybe less than ethical in my space.
Yeah.
So I go through all of that and I get accepted on, and they just had a board meeting, and I find this absolutely fascinating. 138 cases in 12 months that they passed on to the sheriff's department. Now it's psychics, mediums, retired and active law enforcement, linguistics people, like the whole gamut. 138 cases they passed on to law enforcement in 12 months. 138 of them were solved, and 138 of them were solved in large part by something that a psychic medium got.
That's
wow.
It's really like a secret weapon, I'm telling you. I had another lady that contacted me. This was kind of towards the not too far into it. And I didn't know her. She was a friend of a friend, and a friend of hers daughter was missing. And I was like, I can see her, and she's at a bus station, and this is the guy that she's with. This is what it looks like. This is where she's at. She's gone this direction. I don't know how I know this stuff. And so they went to the bus station, got the cameras out, and there she was out there with the same guy, with the same description and everything. But you kind of have to be careful, because it kind of sounds like I'm the criminal, right? How does she know that?
I was going to say, don't be too accurate.
Right. So it's a fine, interesting, weird line in those spaces. But what I've come to find now, I'm on with another nonprofit, and it's like you said, is so emotional. People are at their most vulnerable. Just when you think that at the passing of someone makes someone vulnerable, when your family member is missing,
have no answer.
There's no closure at all. There's no,
But
no rest.
Either way would be so rewarding for you and for them. Like, it would make it so worth it. Even if they just find out the worst, they can move on and heal, go to the next stage.
It's the silent epidemic, they call it in the States. They say 600,000 people a year go missing. 4,000 plus people are unclaimed in the States every year. They find them, but they have no idea who they are. I was reading something not too long ago that was in Australia. 53,000 people went missing in 2021.
Wow.
That's like, that would be 140 something a day that go missing in Australia. And you guys have a lot of like land where there's no
big country.
People.
Yeah, that's sort of like the conspiracy alarm bells start going off when you tell me that. It's like, with that.
That's right. That was from the, like, what do you call Australian Federal Police? Is that what it's called there?
AFP,
I think.
Yep.
AFP. Yeah, that was where that statistic came from, was from them. So you consider it's probably a legitimate number, right? It's not Bob in his garage that shuffled it out. So
that's right.
Bob again, there he is.
Bob with the Australian Institute of Bullshit has a great newsletter that comes out each month. That's very interesting. So it affects more people than maybe you
and it's during the pandemic too. So it's like, what happened then? Like, that's when we were all locked up.
Yeah, in 2021, exactly. It's more than that. I mean, the forensic side too. I do work with corporations that call and say money's mysteriously missing. How do we figure out what's happening? Or if, if you think about it, anything that's not quite right, you can use the skills for.
Yeah.
You can find something that's been stolen. You could find a person. You could try to figure out what's up with missing money. So there's a lot of ways that you can use it. But when it comes to people, I mean, I'm a complete 100% volunteer. I will usually pull them into one of the nonprofits that come with the whole bigger group. And I work alone first because I like to know what I'm getting without being influenced.
Yeah.
And then I like to sit with a group and say, because I could be the one saying you're dead. I got Harry on the other side, right? So then coming in a group and putting it all together is always quite interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, because it'd be hard. You kind of got to filter out, what am I seeing and thinking about, and then what am I actually getting from the other side here as a message? So that's a really good idea to separate that first and have your post-it notes. So with the post-it notes, I'm interested, when you get some of these messages, is it because the messages aren't 100%, there's not necessarily the continuity? So you might get a name and then you might get details of something else. And if you wrote it all out, it would seem like it's all the one thing? Or is it just a way of looking at different aspects of what you're getting?
That's a very interesting question. And the best way for me to answer that is that I'm initially trained in this space to do a reading for you. And if I say Bob, kangaroo, green, motorcycle, you're going to say, huh? Right?
Yes.
Because you want the sentence, you want the flow. That's how we communicate. That's how they communicate from the other side. So if someone comes through with information from the other side, or psychically, as I tuned into this other missing guy or the missing young lady that I mentioned, it's not the story. A police officer does not want the story, and we don't solve it. All we do is just give them golden nuggets, right? And so it's not me to say, oh, she's traveling on a bus headed north to San Diego in with a blah, blah, blah. No, it's not for me. Even if that's what it is that I'm getting, I can say a bus is significant. I can say this man is significant, and this is the description. I can say north, but I don't know if they stopped in San Diego or if they kept going further north. And if I say San Diego is, where they went, then I'm saying San Diego is where they went, but they might have kept going.
Yes.
So it's just, I don't even use a full-size Post-it. I have thousands of these. I use this little bitty one. So it can just be just a word.
Yeah, we love interviewing experts from different fields about all things outside the apparent physical realm.
And the one constant is these phenomena are transmitted through energy.
So we sought out and teamed up with Subtle Energy Science
to bring you, our listeners,
energetic encoded technology you can use on your phone, laptop, computer, or tablet,
turning your device into a powerful personal quantum energy tool. Now, we're not the creators, or are we qualified enough to explain it at all, but there is a mind-blowing number of scientific studies available on their website.
We get to try their range ourselves so we can give an honest review. And until the end of April, we've got 20% off The Mystic with promo code MATP-861.
And I love using The Mystic. I love it more than anything else. And I notice it really helps if you want to open up your heart or tune in to a deeper awareness.
Now back to the show.
Do you think that the small Post-it notes that you have with the information, does that become like a physical frame on a chunk of information that you have to try and separate connecting the dots too much?
I think that's great. Yes. I've never really thought about that way. The other thing that it does is, particularly for me with numbers, is, let's say I get 38 and you get 44 and you get 56. And so we now have these three numbers that we can keep flipping back and forth. And it could be a location, right? It could be a longitude, a latitude. It could be an address. It could be so many things. So it also allows those to be moved around to see. And all of a sudden, so now let's just say it's a longitude, latitude situation and somebody's, you know, in the woods.
There's
So
a lot of
once we
numbers there.
look around a few times and then you go to a map and you look at those lines and you're like, oh, these numbers are kind of familiar, and we see a waterfall. And when you put these three things together with a waterfall, we've now pinpointed a very small area for a location. So it also works in that sense, but I do look at them as frames of just that moment.
Wow.
It can be hard too to get information in a nugget, because I'm trained initially to get the story. So I'm like, hey, so tell me, like, where are you really? What's going on? Why did you do that? How come that happened? Oh my God, you've got to be kidding me, right? So the story can all come through, and this has happened, and then you give golden nuggets. And so maybe I've got another man's name, another woman's name, and a vehicle, which has happened.
Yeah.
And so in my golden nuggets, I think I know a story because I've been chattering away with somebody who's left on purpose and is still alive. And the police at this point felt this person was still alive. And I say, here's this woman's name, here's this man's name, and here's this vehicle. And when I get a name, I usually listen because I don't get a lot. Names are not my forte. So we send that to the police, and the police go and they find out who this man is, who this woman is, and what this truck is. And they also find out this story that's woven between the two of them and the missing person. And they shut the whole thing down and they say, we think we have a murder investigation going on now. I'm like, no. They're alive. They're alive. The police say, no. And by the way, how did you know this?
Oh, no. Yes, here we go.
So, I mean, I was so far removed. It was obvious I had nothing to do with it. But you do, if I would have given the whole story, the police would have said probably.
Yeah, throw it away. They've got to find it for themselves. Yeah.
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 And that's their job.
Isn't
Yeah.
that strange though? They're knowing that they're getting information from psychics, but then they still question you about, how do you know this stuff? Like,
they do, and they can't help themselves, and that's okay. They're probably
That's
even
their job.
more cynical. They're probably more cynical
but they still
or whatever
go
than
I love that.
everything that they've seen, all the people that they've run across, everything. They'd be very, and they don't call, let's face it, the police do not call the first day they get a case unless you've built a relationship with them.
Yeah.
They either come because the family has pulled you in.
Yeah.
Which is more common with the missing people, or because the case is so cold and they are so desperate, they'll try anything.
Yeah. And hence why this is great, giving them those nuggets, because I think if you just gave them the whole story, it's the whole thing's questionable. But if you give them nuggets and they connect the dots scientifically, but through investigation, I should say, then there's no refuting what's going on. It doesn't matter how you got those nuggets. The investigation brought it out, right? So it's not helpful for you. It's like when people talk about hypnosis in court cases, and it's like, oh, they can't do that. I'm like, of course they can't, because it's going by, your interpretation or your memory, and our memory is incredibly unreliable. And what I do is I get you to go through and find the emotion connected to it and release that emotion. The emotion's always true. The emotion's always real. And the details are probably real, but they might be fabricated based on what you thought.
Yeah, but your perception.
It doesn't matter. It's
your
not
emotion.
a court case. So it's that same thing where if it's going to be useful, it has to be scientifically investigated to then go through that legal process. So for it to be in those nuggets, it makes sense, because it just gives them enough of even changing their idea on how they were thinking about this thing, that gives it's almost like it's outsourced intuition for their investigation.
Forced intuition.
Yeah.
I'm gonna
Do you know
use
what I mean?
that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because they can't be intuitive in their role, but if they outsource that intuition and you've got a name and a car and a this and a that, they don't have to question themselves that they're going crazy. They can call you crazy and then put that and pull that into the story and just think about it differently and go, wait a second, you know, those bits. Yeah. So it makes sense that it's in nuggets.
And plus the information that we get, right, it's not going to be absolutely 100% every single time and complete and in its entirety, like the whole solving of a crime. It just unfortunately doesn't work that way. But you got to remember that they've already been knee deep in it. So they already have all this information in their head about it. So when you give them a nugget, it fits into the other stuff that they already have versus a story, and they're trying to make their stories come together.
Yeah.
And it's difficult also. I think it's the hardest thing. True crime junkie. I read, like, I'd love to read the end of the book first, but I don't. But I definitely
such
have
a
to
psychic. You're such a psychic.
Oh,
I want to know. I want to know. But in this work, we don't know. Like we give those nuggets to the police and we walk away.
So like, I know you don't do it for acknowledgement and applause, and you do it for profit. So when the investigators use your nuggets and the other psychics combined, and then they go to get to claim that they solved the case thanks to you guys, but did they ever give you any credit or anything? Like, or is it just nice so you can sleep well at night knowing you helped? Like,
the biggest thing is just knowing that you helped in some way. When it's incredible is when the friend of the mother calls me and says, oh my God, they looked at the bus station and her daughter is alive and she was there and they saw her in the camera, right? Like, I don't need anything. I don't need anything. But that makes me sleep incredibly good at night, because I know that gave that mother a sense of relief, a knowledge that her daughter was still alive at that moment, that there's something to be said about that. And then I think that as far as like the nonprofits are super big on saying, I mean, they put it out in their board meeting minutes. Out of those 138 cases that we did, 138 of them were solved. And of those 138 that were solved, they were 138 solved by a large part by some nugget that came from a psychic medium.
Yeah.
Hence all the testing, right? To not just have, because like anyone can put their hand up and go, yeah, I'm the psychic and pretend. This just shows that their testing is very good. So you're actually getting people that are not just that haven't fooled themselves into thinking that they're genius psychics, just bullshit artists as well. Because there could be both, right?
Tested on stuff.
I think there's both. I think there's all three. I think there's people that are very psychic. I think there's people that have made themselves believe that they're psychic, or they got people around them believing it, or they're full of shit. All three of those exist. So I guess, and they look the same at the start. So obviously the testing's important.
And if you ever think that you're going to give golden nuggets to a police officer and he's going to get on in the big, we have found the girl and thank you to the psychic medium Mary who helped us to do that. Let me bring in
they're never going
to Mary to give you
and everyone cheering. You need a superhero outfit for that.
It is never going to happen. But if you did give information and they did find the person, and you do see the police officer on the off chance saying, we found the missing child,
that's fun.
You sleep good at night.
That's really beautiful that you do that. And because not everyone would be happy with that. Some people would feel like they need some kind of recognition for what they're doing. But as a healer, someone who does intuitive healing and a psychic, we know that generally your heart is in the right place. And so that I know that it's enough for you, which is really beautiful. And I'm sure people turning to you for help would understand that. That's all we need. We're meant to be, changing the world and helping. And that's the most important part. You're to make money some way, maybe some other ways, but maybe not for this.
There's plenty of other ways for me to make money, but that is not one of them.
if you're meant to make money, you'll make money.
Yes.
That's the thing. I think which is why if some people do charge for that sort of stuff and they work directly for the police force, you know, it sounds like a TV show, but if there are people out there that do it, cool, no judgment. But yeah, it's interesting. I wonder if, I guess there's a very humble nature to your work, unlike Xavier, that's all about herself. You know, I'm joking. There's a very humble nature to your work, and I wonder if the way that this sort of stuff works, where it's not from you, it's from somewhere else, and the only way you can stuff it up is by getting involved. Does that bring that humble nature naturally to what you do? Do you think it's the process of how it all works?
I would say yes. However, for me, I would say yes. I think that that's definitely part of it. Like I have no control. I have no say. I have no anything in the whole, right, in any of the work. It has absolutely zero to do with me. But in that same breath, I would say that there are people that I know have the ability. They're psychics and or mediums, and they have crazy big egos. Right. And then there's also people who have crazy big egos and they aren't psychics and mediums, but claim that they are too.
So we're just describing people.
Yeah, right. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And so I think at times it requires me, like it's a fine line. This is an example. So I have to interview with that nonprofit. So tell me about some cases you've worked on that you've been spot on. Right. Like it's kind of weird. Well, let me tell you how great I am, actually.
Yeah.
Let me give you some information. Right? Yeah, like that's not me. I don't come across that way.
Yeah.
So I'm like, well, why don't you just test me? Test me on old cases, test me on new cases. That's the best way for me to show you. So at times people do look. I do a lot of platform work. So that just invites the public in. Oftentimes I do it through my my social media stuff, just to invite people in to see what's it like. I don't charge for a ticket. I want people who have never had a reading to come and see what's it like to get a reading. I want them to stay after and ask me questions. Did you really see that? How did you hear that? When you said this, what does that mean? Because I want people to learn and know and see about it. And I want them to experience it from somebody that, and I will say this, that is very ethical and that really holds a space, because there's a lot of people, just like there's bad lawyers, just like there's bad hypnotherapists, just like there's bad everything else, right, that are out there. And it bothers me that the only time that I will really stand up and say something that I would say I'm going to brag on myself is that I am ethics first. Then everything else falls behind that.
Which is something to be proud of. So you should boast about that.
Yes, that's something you can boast about. Exactly. I did have a couple of questions about where you were talking about what you see and what you hear, particularly with the investigations. Now, are you accessing this information through a spirit guide, or is it just where you get yourself into a meditative state to access it, or are you doing trance work? What happens with getting this information? Are you communicating with someone else, or is it just coming through?
So it depends. It's a great answer. Sometimes. If I feel energy differently if I'm connecting to somebody psychically versus mediumship. So mediumship is you're deceased, you're on the other side. And then psychically is somebody who I'm connecting to, that I'm telling you about, your next job or your next car or whatever. And so the way energy contacts me, when someone's on the other side and I read, oftentimes you'll see me twitch because I'm blending and the spirit's coming into me. So I'm kind of moving around a lot. So if I'm getting information and I am drawn this way, because this is where I'm so used to all of my deceased people coming in on my right, if my chair will just move, I'll just come, I'm just here.
Sure.
So, and then I can feel that energy differently. So I can tell pretty quickly whether or not I feel that they're alive or deceased.
Wow.
Now, sometimes in an investigation, what happens, and it happened the other day, was that I was getting a lady psychically. I was getting her, I could see where she was. I could see a marker. I could feel what was happening right before. And I kept thinking that she was alive. So I got towards the end of it, having my conversation with her, me and her, and sitting up here, and all of a sudden I just got pulled to the side. And what I realized was that she was giving me that vision, her last moments, her last period of being alive. So it was coming through more psychically for me, because she was giving it to me as she was alive. So when I bounced all my information off of somebody else who was also working on the case, she's like, yeah, I got the exact same thing. I got the markers before her final destination, that she's deceased, everything. So sometimes it comes through. I have to kind of wait it out, unless they're just clearly dead, then it's different. But if I'm psychically getting information, I sometimes have to just say, okay, and kind of just to wait it out, unless they're telling me right off the bat, hey, like I'm intentionally hiding.
I'm giving you the backstory.
I left, I'm okay, I'm intentionally gone, this is what the situation is. Then it's a little bit different. So I feel the energy differently.
And you get that from, a lot of the time, you get that from the person that you are trying to, the missing person.
Yeah, tuning into them.
So there's no intermediary. It's just literally tapping into either their current energy or their, like Star Wars Yoda coming through.
Yeah, that's right.
Side, yeah.
Or in the case that I gave you earlier, where there was some confusion about whether or not they were deceased or alive, I'm tapping into somebody who's clearly deceased, that's the other outside of the missing person, that gives me the information. So that's another way to get it.
I love that you collaborate sometimes, like in a group, because we know that different psychics and mediums will have different skills and have different, like you said, you're not that great with names, but somebody else might be excellent with names and they might get something stronger. So when you guys get all chatting together, and I can imagine how kind of exciting it would be, going, oh, that makes sense, and that fits into this puzzle piece. And then it's so good to be able to work together nicely, instead of wanting to take credit and I'm like, oh yeah, I got it. It's not a competition, it's teamwork.
Oh no, it's definitely it's definitely a team because really it's when you really put all, even the numbers for locations, or they got a word and it was a bear and they're like, oh my God, did they get ate by a bear in the woods? Right? They didn't know what to do with bear, but then I got a word and then we moved those words around and we're like, oh, here's the road right here. It's those two words.
Wow.
Well, they barrack for a team that's got cubs. I don't know,
working
it's gonna take ages trying to put it together.
It's so important to work in a group if you can.
That's great.
That's amazing. And Xavier, you'd be great in that group, because it's like, I can't help with where they're at, but they were a pigeon hunter in their past life, and they're very good at it.
Here we go.
And they're like,
this is the life lesson. I could tell you why they decided to leave at that time. I'm pretty good at that part. I'm pretty good at that part, about the life lessons, why they decided to leave, if it's take their life or not. what missing, what like whose soul family that they not listen to, that they sort of missed that boat.
Yeah, great.
I can do it again.
Whereabouts is she now, Xavier? Oh, stuffed if I know. I just thought you might like to know.
I'm just knowing why it happened in the first place. Like
That's right. That's what we
I'll be
really
fine.
need to know.
Yeah, that's right.
Maybe I
As
can
the
join the
police
team and
officer's
fill in
there
some of
just
those
going,
blanks.
Wow. Yeah. Thanks for your input.
I have an older lady that lives next door, and she always comes over. Karen, I just wanted to tell you something really fast. It's really fast.
No such thing.
About 50 years ago. That's how every story
That's how it
starts.
starts.
It'll be really quick. 20 minutes later.
Yeah.
So Steve, really, you could be that about 50 years ago, about 50 lives ago.
50 lives
This is
ago.
where it
It was a
started.
monk.
Yeah.
They're
Not
like,
that it's got
okay,
anything to do with solving the
just
case.
say.
But the information for the family, it might be.
That's right.
Yeah, I'm just here for the podcast. This is wonderful.
Oh dear.
Oh, wow.
Oh,
Why I don't help with these cases.
Don't worry, she'll get me back. You'll get me back.
Oh,
yeah.
This is great. So
Uh.
the difference, is there a difference then when you're working with individuals or say with small groups, or might even be with big groups, as far as the energies that you connect with? Are you speaking, do you have anyone on the other side that you're aware of that helps you with connecting in with conversations with someone that's already
brings
passed?
it
Your
in.
mediumship, I guess.
Mhm.
Well, Vivian for sure.
Oh yeah, of
I
course,
call
that's right.
I
You've got
call
a
her
name.
my air traffic controller. I
Okay.
just say, hey Viv, like bring in whoever, whatever I need. If it's you or whoever it is, get them all organized out there and make it all happen. And then I think when you're working alone, so with the nonprofits, how it works is I get an email and it has a picture. That's all I want. I don't like any other details. I just want the picture, because if I get the details, then I get in my head. And if I get the same details, then I know I've connected to their energy.
Yes. Yep.
Got you.
Fantastic.
So everybody works differently in that space. That's what works best for me. So with the nonprofits, it's just me sitting here connecting to a picture and going from there. And we send it all in to the sorter of the info, who somewhere out there puts it on a big spreadsheet and figures out what all floated to the top and goes from there. In the individual work where like a family member or somebody is kind of connected within my greater sphere, where I'm working with other psychics and mediums that I know, it's interesting to watch the energy ebb and flow. It's because the odds of us 3 people or more sitting down and saying, we all got Bob, I've got to say, we all got Bob, a bus, San Diego, and 2 trees. I mean, it's just, that's not going to happen because we all get information differently. So when we get it, at first you can always see I'm kind of used to it now. You'll get it, and inevitably someone thinks they're alive and somebody thinks they're not. Or somebody thinks that they went north and somebody thinks that they went south. Oftentimes it all weaves together and makes sense because we don't get the wrong information. It's how we interpret it.
A skeptic will say that's very convenient, Karen.
Pardon?
A skeptic will be sitting here going, that's very convenient.
Yeah.
You figure it out. Which I don't blame them. This is ridiculous. Eventually it's how we interpret it.
Yeah, it is. That's all it is. So it's energetically, when you're working with people, it's a lot of movement and how we connect. Or we don't usually all sit together and say, okay, let's all sit here and connect to him on the other side. But how the energy moves, or how somebody will say, okay, I'm going to pick up on this, or let me work on that, or it just how it all moves and then comes together, so that like when you're at the end and you've got your golden nuggets that you're passing on, it's like, oh, okay, good. Like I feel good about this.
And that's better than 4 people sitting around a Ouija board trying to connect with the spirit. And you might still find out it's Bob at a bus stop in front of a DoubleTree hotel in San Diego. It's like, okay, same thing. Yeah,
exactly. Exactly.
Shout out to Bob that lives in San Diego, by the way.
Yeah,
We found you. You're welcome. You're welcome. Watch the bus. Yeah.
Yeah.
Poor Bob.
Exactly.
all the Roberts out there just going, oh, I don't like this podcast.
In Australia, we'd lengthen his name, remember, to Bobster or something.
Billy Bob.
Billy Bob. That's right. That's my dad's name. And it's his birthday today. This is amazing. See?
Happy birthday, Dad.
See a podcast with 2 psychics on it. Amazing. Got his name.
He'll love that for his birthday.
Birthday.
I'll tell him. I'll pass that on.
Yep.
With a bottle of wine. I think he'll appreciate the bottle of wine just as much.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's perfect.
No, just as much. I reckon just as much. He's a big softie.
It's May 2nd where you are?
Yeah.
So happy
birthday, Dad.
May Day birthday.
Yeah, he's got 2 birthdays, the 2nd and the 3rd, because on his birth certificate it had the 2nd, and his mum swore that he was actually born on the 3rd. So he loves that. So he celebrates both. So
that's weird. That's another cool
dude.
connection between me and you, because that happened to my mum.
Is that so?
Her birthday is the 16th of June. She celebrates it, but her mum, like her dad, when he came in, like he thought she was born on that day. She was actually born the day before, and my nan didn't correct him because he was like, he should have been there anyway, whatever. So he went and wrote the 16th on the birth certificate, but she was actually born the 15th. So she has 2 days in a row as well.
Yep.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Oh,
There you
I
go.
love that.
That's a fun synchronicity.
There you go. So Billy Bob, you're famous now as well. Happy birthday.
Birthday's next month. That's cool. I like it. Interesting.
Fabulous. You can't make that stuff up.
I don't know what that means. It's just a confirmation to me that like weird numbers and birthdays and stuff mixing up is just confirmations that people are my people. Are meant to be in life. Like, yeah.
So my dad's meant to be in your life. I'll let him know.
My mum and yours.
Yeah, okay, cool.
They could be besties.
They could be. This is fun.
They need to meet.
They do.
She's married to someone who has a wine company, you know.
Oh, yes, of course.
They'll get along well.
They'll get along really well. Yep.
Yes.
They'll get along just fine. Yeah.
We've gone totally off topic.
Yeah, sorry, Karen, you're still here.
Sorry, Karen.
I did want
another detour.
This detour, I love tying bows. And before we let you go, I have to ask, even if it's just briefly, and maybe we'll have you back on the show to talk about it a little bit more. But what the hell are you talking about with birth order? What does that mean? And does that have anything to do with my dad having 2 birthdays?
Oh my gosh.
The siblings in the family. What is this?
This is the radio one. I warned you that there was going to be a radio edit where I put on a radio voice. I ask you a really big question. You've got 3 minutes till the ad break.
Yeah.
So, Karen.
Gotta go.
Okay, do it again.
Order. Let us know all about birth order, everything you know about birth order so that people can understand. And you've got 2 minutes and 32 seconds. Go.
Great. So you would traditionally think about birth order as somebody being born as the oldest or the youngest or somewhere in the middle as a middle child, on occasion an only child.
Yes.
So we think about like the pressure of the oldest to be, you know, how they are, the middle child just trying to be seen, the youngest child's just like off on their own. In true developed birth order theory, there are 6 girl positions and 6 boy positions, and they've been detailed down to personality traits, careers, even physical appearance. And it's been so studied, it's crazy how rich the information is. And I'll just end you with a 3 boy position. So
Xavier, behave yourself, by the way. I see the eyebrows on. It is birth, it is positions, but just calm down, will you? All right,
That's really sad that you knew exactly what I was thinking.
I know you too well. So do all of our listeners going, oh, this is going to set her off. She is. Hope there's a glass of water there somewhere.
There you go. Whew.
Yep, good. Yep. Okay.
Tell me when
three.
you're ready.
No,
Karen's
give me the
daughter.
three. Give me the three.
She's
boy
not innocent.
positions.
She's not sitting there going, "What do you mean? I don't know what you're talking about."
a three boy position. So a third boy, third from the father. There's a lot of sequencing and calculations and everything, but the third born of the father, that's a son, is the diplomat, the strategist. They're the chameleon. They can be whatever they need for whoever they need, whenever they need. So if you think of somebody like Desmond Tutu, who was a priest and ran the whole anti-apartheid movement in South Africa. He could bring anybody to the table. He could be anybody he needed to be to get the conversation started. He was incredible. So we've got a very balanced three boy. He indicates all of those things. Now a three boy, when they go out of balance, becomes, they're still a strategist, they're still a negotiator, they're still all these things. But now you add that they become a little bit more of a loner. They become a little bit unethical. And their lesson in life is to learn to tell the truth. And the three boy that's out of balance is Putin.
Okay.
Oh, so just like a star sign and things like that. Okay.
Yep. So he's a strategist, a negotiator, all of these things, but he's out of balance. And so you see him on the out of balance side. So which is the loner, the unethical, his life lesson is to be truthful. So birth order is super rich with information. I use it in my investigations. If somebody was a one boy, would they have intentionally left?
That's another dimension. Apart from the investigations, do you get like parents wanting to know about their kids more, or just individuals wanting to know about themselves more?
Yeah. Why do people come and see you about it?
When someone's been missing and they come back and everything, it's a happy ending at the end. I have yet to have somebody not call me up and say, can you do a birth order reading for our family so that we can put all the pieces, because they're in crisis. They're trying to work through. It's the key to communication, right? Think how many people don't get along with their siblings, right? They're like, are you sure we have the same parents? Are you sure? Like, what happened to you? And then when you add something like grief or a crime or whatever, anything into it, it just exemplifies this lack of ability to be able to communicate. So, teachers with kids, parents with their kids, siblings, it's counselors, therapists, they're trying to figure out how to get the bickering couple to be able to communicate better. It's a super rich with information stuff. I'm just getting ready again to relaunch a couple of classes on it, because there's so much information there that everyone can use, because everybody knows a person. And it could just be your own person. And you might just not understand why it is you've always been how it is you've been. But when you learn that it's all just because of your birth order placement.
And boy or girl, with the age gap, like you might just have boy number 3, but what if like I have 3 brothers. I'm the eldest and I have 3 younger brothers. And I'm thinking my youngest brother, there's a huge age gap. So I was like, does that come into it, or does it nothing to do, just the birth order?
It depends. And the easiest way for me to kind of explain that is that I was raised a one girl. So I was raised as the oldest girl. My dad didn't have any other older girls. It was just me. I was the oldest and my younger brother. I'm very much a one girl. I'm maternal. I care about family. I'm very type A. I hate being late, all of those things. Then I was adopted and I did all of my research and everything else. And I found out I'm a 3 girl. And I was like, that's interesting. A 3 girl is a healer.
Okay. Wow. Yeah.
That's interesting. I'm a one girl, like the original.
There's nature and nurture. There's I'll tell you one more quick story just because you can edit it out. I did a birth order reading for a couple and they're like, this is so strange. They have 2 boys. This is so strange. They're adults, so they knew them pretty well. This is so strange. You've got the one, there's 1 boy and 2 boy. But the problem is that the two boy you're describing is one boy, and you aren't describing the two boy.
Huh.
It was like, okay, well then there had to be a sequencing situation, which means that there's an older boy that's somewhere that no one knows about.
And does it reset on the father's side each time? Because you keep mentioning the
Fathers
father.
only. Yep. Because the father carries the gene that determines the sex.
So does that mean he just is like, so I got someone pregnant?
The father was in
different father.
or different fathers, could be a lot of things, right? But what happened with their
Family
situation
secrets.
was they got on 23andMe, and he had gotten a lady pregnant when he was in Vietnam in the war and had a son, and there they were on 23andMe. So
Wow.
that's how
So many more questions now.
detailed the information is, that we were like, at the end of the reading, we're like, yeah, there's something going on there.
But if they're not raised together and they're not spending time, how does that sequencing thing even happen? That's just all spiritual woo-woo now in my head. Like, how does that even make sense?
But I was not raised a 3 girl. I was not, but I am through and through a healer.
Same. So so many questions. Anyway, that's a whole nother podcast.
Yeah.
That's so interesting. We studied when I was a youth worker. We always used to do lots of different training, and we trained under different experts in the field. And one of them, who's still out now in Australia, Michael Carr-Gregg, who's a great child psychologist. But we talked about birth order, not in this sense, but how birth order was so important. And this was not spiritual woo-woo. This was literally child psychology, and talking about the birth order and the different roles, and how interestingly some kids could jump the order. So depending on what had happened, if there might have been a disability with the child, there might have been like the girl is a second born and the mum dies, and the girl takes on, they're 14, they're taking on more cooking and stuff like that. They've jumped the order.
Yeah.
And so or a grandmother moves in.
Oh, that would change it. Yeah.
Yes.
Yes.
So, but it's interesting, the things you're talking about is probably tapping into as well a lot of this side of the birth order. Where does that, how is that important? I guess there's some kind of importance with it. It's important to know. It's kind of getting the who's who in the zoo. But why is birth order from, I guess, the father side so important?
It's the father carries the gene that determines the sex, and the birth order starts with the oldest firstborn of the father. So if the father gets married to the lady and they have 2 kids, a boy and then a girl, and then they get divorced, and then he has a boy and a girl, it's not a 1 boy and a 2 girl. It's a 2 boy,
2 boy and a 2 girl.
And then a 1, 2, 3, 4 boy, 2 girl.
Okay. 4 boy,
Yeah.
2 girl.
Because you always start back at the beginning and step all the way down. So she has the influence of the boy. Just if it's a boy and then a girl, you have the boy is just a 1 boy. The girl is a 2 boy, 1 girl, because it's the second boy in the sequencing, and then a 1 girl because it's the first girl. So it has the influence then of the 2 boy, and she also has the influence of the 1 girl.
So hopefully some of these dads have been able to keep it in their pants if they're seeing you about the birthing order. It's like, just be careful.
No one wants to see me come in and do the birth order.
Well, I'm going to question my dad now. If I'm a healer like you, Karen, and I was raised a 1 as well, firstborn. My dad was very young too when he got married. So
you never know.
And now I'm wondering if a sibling passes away, whether they're a baby or a child, that would change things.
Yeah.
A miscarriage after 4 months will impact it.
Yep. Because I had a stillborn sister that was before that 3rd brother. So he's like, how does that all interweave? Like, so many questions. It'd be so interesting to find out.
Yep, it all interweaves. It's a fascinating subject. I could talk about birth order forever. I love
That's the next
birth order.
podcast then. That'd be
Next podcast, it's a birth order
Demonstrate.
podcast. And like this one, we'll get around to the topic 35 minutes into the actual podcast.
You've been so much fun,
It's been a lot
Kazza.
of fun.
Affectionately call you Kazza, the Aussie version, which we love.
Thank you.
It was
Thank you.
really cool.
I had a fabulous time. I just love you both. I just knew I was drawn in, and I just knew this was going to be a great fit.
Well, you
I had no idea.
Yeah, you psychics should know. I don't even know why I get involved.
You got to make sure we don't go off topic too much, Michael.
I did, and what a wonderful job I did of that.
Oh, that was really beautiful, Karen. Thank you for the work you do to help so many people.
Yeah.
As well, it's really important. We really appreciate that. Just as a collective, it's just really great.
Because you don't get to go on stage when they announce on the microphone. You don't get to wear your superhero outfit, which would be in purple velvet, of course.
Yes.
But this is your purple velvet moment. Thank you very much. And thank you so much for being on the podcast.
Yes.
And it was wonderful to meet you and share with you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. I think we should definitely reconvene again. Even if we aren't on the podcast, we'll just have wine and catch up.
Sounds good. We'll catch up in Melbourne. Let's just hope we're in the right Melbourne.
Yep. Yes, definitely.
I'm at the cafe.
And you'll have no problem flying here, Karen.
Yeah, I'm at the bus stop in front of the Doubletree Hotel with a bear.
With Bob.
With Bob, who's a Cubs fan. Look, this is amazing. How did you know?
Awesome.
On that note, if you hadn't listened to the podcast, you won't understand. But on that note, thank you so much, Karen.
Thank you.
That's it for another episode. Thanks to our sponsor, Subtle Energy Sciences. Click the link in the show notes to access their full product range of quantum healing technology.
And thank you so much to our Patreon supporters. We're so grateful for your contribution to keep this podcast going.
If you'd like to join our Patreon, you can receive bonus full episodes, early release, and monthly readings and meditations.
We love to hear from you, so please comment on our YouTube channel or email us at mickandthepsychic@gmail.com.
I'm a certified hypnotherapist and timeline regression therapist. If you wish to contact me to explore the source of an issue you're facing, just book a session at hernhypnosis.com and include the promo code MATP for 10% off. You can contact me on Insta and Facebook at hernhypnosis.
Check out my website at optimisticxavier.com.au if you feel you'd like to connect with me as a psychic medium, spiritual mentor, or intuitive coach. Include the promo code MATP for 10% discount. You can also find me on Insta, LinkedIn, and Facebook.
We look forward to connecting with you again next time as we attempt to leave no stone unturned.
Bye.
All right, cool. I reckon that should be okay.